Hello there. You're welcome to Village Square Africa. I am Keminni Amanor. Today on the table for discussion the issues around pit bulls in South Africa. If you've been paying attention to the news, you may have heard of the debate ongoing in that country on whether or not to ban pit bull ownership. We'll learn more about this species of dogs, and we'll go further into whether or not this breed specific legislation being called upon will be the solution to the problems South Africans are facing right now. So you want to stay with us here for that very insightful conversation. Right now, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take the African headlines. Stay with us. Welcome back to the square. Time now for the news, and Dakpo is here with the very latest. What's happening around the country? Well, not the country, the continent, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. Let me say I love your outfit, by the way. I love the polka dots. They stand out.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, a lot is happening around the continent, particularly, let's start with Nigeria, where oil was discovered for the first time in commercial quantity up north. So that's a big story right now.
Absolutely.
And one of the big stories also has to do with the unveiling of the new currency. There has been talks about the currency redesign and all of that. And reactions...
I'll ask you what you think about it later. Right? Let's hear the headlines now.
Reactions have, of course, started trailing it. But hello and welcome to African Headlines on New Central Television. I am Dakpo Adigboye. Let's kick off in North Africa, where Libyan Parliament has dismissed the governor of the Central Bank of Eastern Libya, Ali al-Hibiri, over allegations of corruption. The move came after a meeting of the East Libyan-based assembly on Tuesday in Benghazi. A parliamentary statement says the minister also was stripped of his duties as chair of two committees in charge of the reconstruction of the towns of Dona and Benghazi. It's also asked the public prosecutor to pursue legal actions on the charges of corruption and gave the Libyan Audit Bureau orders to do so. Now, Algerian National Assembly adopted the Budget Bill 2023 during a plenary session. A bill approved on Tuesday proposes a series of measures aimed at boosting investment as part of the new budgetary approach centered on objectives for greater efficiency and transparency. It is expected for debate and a vote at the Council of the Nation, or upper house of the parliament, before being signed by the president into law. In West Africa, United Nations official for Africa, Martha Ama Akia Pobe, says pirate groups in the Gulf of Guinea are adapting to changing dynamics, both at sea and in coastal areas. She says criminal networks may be shifting to less risky and more profitable activities.
Pirate groups are adapting to changing dynamics both at sea and in coastal areas. In this respect, the recent decrease in instances of piracy may in part be attributable to the shift by criminal networks to other forms of maritime and riverine crime, such as oil bunkering and theft, which they likely view as both less risky and more profitable.
The threat of piracy has cost the region lives, stability, over $1.9 billion in financial losses every year. The report of the SG that is being presented today reflects a moment of opportunity in our fight against this threat. The substantial decrease in piracy incidents and victims in the Gulf of Guinea this year, particularly for kidnapping for ransom, is a welcome result of many years of work, including in the context of the Yaoundé maritime security architecture as described by the previous speech. At sea, there are more naval patrols and stronger cooperation between regional navies, backed by navies from outside the region who have deployed assets.
Still in the region, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has introduced oil drilling as the first integrated oil development project in northern Nigeria. This is a historic event and the first oil drilling in Nigeria. Amidst all of this, the citizens of the state are asking for creation of more jobs. We are joined by energy expert Adiola Yusuf, who discussed what this means for the energy sector.
Nigeria is an oil-producing country, but the production timeline is imbalanced. In that the production of crude oil, exploitation and exploration of crude oil, comes from a certain region, while the imbalance has shown that other regions that we have majority of leaders in the country that have ruled the country do not produce oil. So there has been that imbalance and talked about it. But discovery of oil in a country like Nigeria is still a blessing if well managed. And the reason for that is this. We shouldn't be talking about Russia-Ukrainian war if we are managing what we have. Nigeria is a country that is the biggest consumer of energy in Africa based on our population. If Nigeria has been putting his act together, refining the product.
Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye landed in Luanda on Wednesday for a summit on the security crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The president departed for Luanda on Wednesday morning to attend the second summit in which several heads of state in the region are to partake. It was gathered that the host Angolan president, João Lourenço, invited leaders Paul Kagame of Rwanda and Felix Tshisekedi of DR Congo. Now, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Ethiopia's Prime Minister have discussed the implementation of the ceasefire deal between Tigray rebels and the government troops in the country's conflict-hit northern region of Tigray. In a tweet, Blinken emphasized the need to implement the deal immediately, including the withdrawal of all foreign forces and concurrent disarmament of the Tigrayan forces. The president, however, has already reiterated his government's commitment to the peace deal. The Democratic Republic of Congo has debunked claims that a French military plane that landed on Friday at the Kisangani airport has landed with weapons. Government spokesperson Patrick Muyaya says the plane landed in distress and that it was searched, as he also noted that the plane had departed from Reunion Island and was headed to the Chadian capital, N'Djamena, though Babona in Burundi, but yet requested to land in the nearest airport as one of its engines could catch fire. And that wraps up the news at this time. Of course, Keminni, so many to talk about in the continent.
First, thank you so much for bringing us the African headlines. And have you seen the redesigned Naira?
I haven't. I've seen the pictures. I haven't seen it physically, but my review is it just feels like it's the same old design, but they just tinted the colors a bit. And I think the most important thing here is the value of the Naira. So hopefully this redesign would impact on the value of the Naira positively.
I agree with you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
With African Headlines. You're still here on Village Square Africa. We'll be right back with our discussion for today. In South Africa, the debate over whether or not to place a ban on Pitbull ownership rages on as dog attacks on people make the headlines. The most recent was the death of 2 children of ages 3 and 8. This power breed of man's best friend is banned in whole or heavily restricted in many countries around the world because they are deemed too dangerous to humans and other animals. In the United States, pit bulls are said to be responsible for at least 70% of fatalities caused by dog attacks. Already in South Africa, there are calls for a ban as well, and some celebrities are already getting involved on both sides of the debate. Now, since the latest Moreland to Durst cases, some pit bull owners have surrendered their dogs for euthanasia. But there are those who are unwilling and are against the calls for bans, and for good reasons too. These dogs are beloved members of their families, and in some cases, they protect the owners from crime too. So let's talk about these pod guys. Why are the attacks so fatal and dangerous? Is it a case of nurture over nature? And is it time for breed-specific legislation in South Africa? You're welcome to the Square. I'm Keminni Amanor. Joining me now on the Square are Sizwe Kupelo, who is patron and founder of the Sizwe Kupelo Foundation. I also have Lehanda Rheeder, who is spokesperson for the Pitbull Federation of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the Square.
Good afternoon.
So the first things I want us to do, great. The first things I want us to do is try and understand, this breed of dogs. So I'll start with you, Lehanda. What are pit bulls?
The Pitbull Terrier was originally bred for dog fighting, but over the years it has been developed with a wonderful spirit, intelligence and athletic body, a robust immune system, endurance, loyalty and gentleness towards its loved ones. The history makes them an all-purpose dog, a wonderful dog that we have today. The American Pitbull Terrier forms part of the working dog group. And because of his spirit, his willingness to please, his adaptability to various tasks of his owners, he will do anything to please them. And that's the reason why he's still the dog of choice for many households. You do, however, need to take into account that he was bred for dog fighting. And you need to be responsible in owning that dog. You need to be able to manage those traits of the dog.
And
so
I want us to talk about some of those traits. What are some of those traits? Sizwe, if you could share that with us.
Well, from our side, we dislike the dog because of the carnage it has caused in South Africa, the killings that have occurred, which is why we have launched a petition calling on government to step in and put a stop to the ongoing killings by imposing a ban. We are told that the breed was bred for repelling bears in America and for dog fighting. So the problem now is that people have taken a monster dog into their households, which is now turning against them, their own children, the neighbors, and people in general. So the foundation wants this breed banned in South Africa, which is not going to be the first instance for South Africa to do such, as many other countries have done. So we are also happy that so many South Africans are in agreement with us. We have 117,000 people that have signed our petition. Over 500,000 people have viewed the petition, which is an illustration of the fact that people are tired of this breed. They want it out of the society. They want it declassified as a domestic pet. We hear of the good things, characteristics that are being mentioned of the dog. But what about the killer instinct that is within the dog, which makes it to turn against its own members of the family?
Right. Let me come back to Lehanda with that. Help us understand the traits of the breed of dogs we call pit bulls.
Well, the specific trait of the dog, like I said, it's an athletic dog. It's very tenacious. It's been bred to please and to do whatever his owner wants it to do. Now, originally in America and in the UK, those dogs were bred for dog fighting. But that is not an acceptable trait to use with dogs anymore. So we don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But because of the dog, all the good qualities that came out of that dog, we kept on with the original traits, which is the athletic one, like I mentioned. Mm-hmm. The original American Pitbull Terrier was bred for dog and animal aggression. It was never ever meant for human aggression. That is the human factor that has turned it and used that aggression in the wrong direction.
How do you mean? How do you mean? Because if, here's my thinking, if this is a fighter dog and that is how they have been bred over time, it's easier to think that that is how they'll behave, even in a domesticated way.
But you see, that is the thing. The original dog fighting dogs were never human aggressive. If that dog showed any human aggression, it was culled, put down, and never bred further with. But in the modern society, and because of all the economic problems that we're having, people turn to, they need an aggressive dog, they need a powerful dog, they need a deterrent for criminal activities. And they turned the original Pitbull Terrier, with the aggression that that dog had in fighting with other animals, people turned that into human aggression. They taught these dogs to be aggressive towards humans because they wanted to keep the criminals out. Now that dog cannot determine who is good and who is bad. It still stays an animal with canine behavior. And that is where the problem is. It's not a bad dog, because that dog will do whatever his owner wants him to do. So if the owner wants the dog to be aggressive towards humans and other people, that is what the dog will do. That is what he was bred for.
Right. So what I'm trying to get out of the way is this a matter of the nature of the dog, or it's a matter of how it is nurtured? Lehanda, just before I take the same question to Sizwe.
We as the Pitbull Federation of South Africa, that knows the breed standard of these dogs, believe that it is not in the breed standard to be human aggressive. And any reputable breeder of the American Pitbull Terrier will not breed with an aggressive American Pitbull Terrier. So we believe that the problem ultimately lies with the individual owner. And that is where the focus of dangerous dog laws and legislation will have to lie. It's not in the nature of the dog to be human aggressive.
Right, Sizwe, so here's the argument Lehanda and many Pitbull owners are making, that it lies in the hands of the owner how the Pitbull behaves. What's your reaction to such an argument?
It's too little too late to justify the dog now. People have died. So many things have not been happening. There's been dereliction of duty. The breed, dangerous as it is, has been allowed to end up in wrong hands. So there's only one solution to the problem that South Africa is facing. Ban the breed, declassify it, take it out of society, to save lives. As the foundation, we want to protect the right to life, which is guaranteed in our constitution. So all the things that are being said, the good things are being said about this dog, do not exist anymore. The numbers do not lie. You know, when we launched the petition, we were prompted by one case in October, but as we speak to you, we talk of 3 innocent lives that have been cut short. We talk of 2 other girls that are lying in 2 different hospitals as a result of this dog. It's causing havoc in the country. People are beginning to be agitated about the dog. We commend those who have elected to surrender the dog to animal rescue institutions. But for those who love it, it's too late. Look at other alternatives. We can't live with this. We can't coexist with this monster dog anymore. It's going to turn against you. I said this 2 weeks ago, that it would be unfortunate if we were to lose another life. Here we are. We lost 2 more lives. So there is no need to justify an animal that has turned out to be very aggressive, out to be very unpredictable, which is a monster. This is no different from a lion. You can't keep a lion. You are putting your life in danger. You are risking the lives of all those around you, including your own children.
Very well. So Lehanda, for those who still have pit bulls and are unwilling to, surrender them, as Sizwe has said, I want us to talk about, the kinds of trainings that could turn your pit bull into an aggressor. What would be the education you'd give over there?
Well, first of all, do not teach your American Pitbull Terrier to be aggressive. You cannot, it's not a guard dog, it's not a protection dog. You cannot teach that dog to be aggressive towards any human. That is just not, that's why we sit with the problem. So the fundamental problem that we have is uneducated owners of these dogs. people that did not look at the breed, what type of dog they were getting. These dogs, they are, like I said earlier on, they're very intelligent, they're athletic, they need stimulation, they need socialization, they need exercise. It's a working dog. You need to give it a purpose. It's not the type of dog that you can only spend 10 or 15 minutes a day with. There is a lot of hard work and training that goes into these dogs, and it's ongoing training and ongoing exercise. It's not just a question of puppy socialization and then off you go, you have a good dog. It's a continuation of those practices that you start off with at an early age with the dog. And the biggest problem that we have is if you look at a breed ban or a breed-specific legislation, that will only address, you will look at appearances. It's got nothing to do with temperament. So the dog looks like an American Pitbull Terrier, so now you automatically assume that it's aggressive. But you have to look at the temperament of the dog. A breed ban will not stop any dog attacks or bites. It will increase the financial burden on the taxpayers and the animal shelters, which are already overwhelmed at the moment. So, and it won't look at any education on how to do proper dog care. And that is where we push for stricter regulations, dog licensing, neutering and spaying of dogs. That should be compulsory. It is all about education, and it's not just about the American Pitbull Terrier. I think there's a large portion of society that's not aware on how to actually proper care for their dogs.
But even in places where you know what you have talked about, there is ongoing education for dog owners. Going through the SPCA is compulsory, for instance, in many parts of the U.S. There are still cases of fatal pit bull attacks, and so someone would argue that that may not be the solution to the problem.
That is correct. I mean, the UK is one of the countries that have actually imposed a breed ban, and they are actually seeing increases of fatalities being reported on dog bites and dog maulings. So the breed ban is definitely not the answer, and that's what the Federation has stated from the beginning. We are opposed to any loss of life, and we do not condone that at all. We have to look at the problem, and unfortunately, it comes back to the human error. It is the human handling the dog, teaching it wrong things. That is where the problem is. It's the human error. It's the human part of this equation that we need to educate.
Right.
The American Pitbull.
I want to move over to Sizwe now. Sizwe, so you've heard the argument that an outright ban will not be the solution. And in fact, there are many others around the world where they say that once the breed-specific legislation came into force, it really didn't deal with the problem because it's more of a behavioral issue with owners. What would you say to that?
Well, based on what we have seen in South Africa, a ban would come as a solution. All the fatal attacks are associated with this particular breed, the pit bull, not any other dog or power breed that's available in South Africa. This dog is a problem. There's no doubt about it, and we just want it banned. We understand that those who keep it, some of them are keeping it in order to ensure safety of their families from crime. But we're saying there are other alternatives. But all the arguments that are being advanced about how good it is, what needs to be done, we feel that it's too late now. Lives have been lost, and these people have been keeping these dogs doing absolutely nothing when they apparently knew of the dangers that the dog was posing to humans. So there is no solution to this except to ban. This is why we have appealed to government. We will hear what the government has to say as and when they allow us to deliver the petition. But numbers do not lie. The past few weeks, 3 people died from a pit bull, not other breed. So there's definitely something extremely wrong with this breed Pitbull.
I mean, do you foresee this compounding the problem in that? I mean, for those who see their pit bulls as members of their family, would have challenges bringing that member of their family forward to the SPCA or to the government, and perhaps people will now be hiding their pit bulls. I mean, how will the ban go around that?
Well, I don't think so. Even before this is made a law, people have volunteered to surrender dozens of dogs in the Free State, in the Eastern Cape. When we launched the petition, people started conducting the foundation, wanting to surrender the dogs in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. And so already people are surrendering their dogs. There is a particular group that we have also seen through the communication that they have had throwing insults at us, the level of arrogance that some of those people who own this breed demonstrate. Actually tells you why you are sitting with a problem. Some are keeping these dogs in order to show force. And even the victims who came forward with their heartbreaking stories were telling the same kind of behavior that after molding, they will just be told that, no, go see a doctor. They don't care. There's been no remorse on the part of some of the owners. This is why we're also encouraging victims to use the existing law of 1993 to institute civil claims against the owners. And for the recent cases, we also encourage them to open criminal cases against the owners.
Very well. So I want us to learn a bit more about Pitbull, because there are some owners whose own Pitbulls have turned on them. And so, Lehanda, just educate us, what are some of the signs of, aggressive behavior that owners should look out for in their dogs? Because they, as you said, they don't start off as aggressors.
That is right. Yes, Kimmy. Well, first of all, we always advise people that if you are looking at buying any American Pit Bull Terrier, to make sure that you do that from a reputable breeder. Because if you look at aggression in dogs, and now I'm purely speaking out of a pit bull owner experience, and we specialize in the breed itself. So I do not have the exact scientific data. There's other specialists that have commented on this as well. But your breeding comes from inheritance, so 70% of your temperament are inherited. So if you have a bad female and a bad male with bad temperaments, and you put them together, the problem or the possibility of getting a puppy with a bad temperament is 70% inherited on that bad behavior. Okay, now then you get your environment that comes into play, so how the dog is kept. Does it have enough exercise? Is it fed properly? Does it have enough attention? Is it exercised and stimulated? And then you have obviously what you teach the dog. So you cannot go around teaching the dog to be aggressive towards certain people, because then you sit with a problem. Now, it is the signs of aggression. People need to understand that all canines display certain signs. If a dog growls, it's not happy. If a dog turns away, it wants to remove itself out of that situation. So you must be very careful, and you must look out for signs of your dog that you can see that he's not a happy dog. I mean, a dog wagging its tail, and you can look in his face, you can see in his eyes actually whether he's actually glad or happy to see you. People need to understand, they need to educate themselves in canine body language.
Okay,
we are in the process of putting educational.
So here's my question.
Yes.
And I'm not a dog owner, so forgive me if I don't know this. I hear you say you should check the temperament of your dog. How do we measure that?
Well, unfortunately, there's no measurement. That comes from genetics and inheritance. So that comes from the breeder. The breeder must give you that information. And a reputable American Pitbull breeder will not sell you a dog that has shown any aggression towards humans in the past, because he will not have bred with that dog. But the problem is, because the dogs got so popular, everybody started breeding with them. They didn't look at temperament. They didn't look at lineage. They didn't look at any of those things. They actually bred the dogs to be aggressive, because that is what the public wanted. And we warned, as the Pitbull Federation of South Africa, we warned people that this is going the wrong way. We're going to get a problem. And 2 decades down the line, we are sitting with a problem. You have uneducated breeders, you have uneducated owners, and they don't know how to handle the dog. The American Pitbull Terrier is a very exceptional dog breed. It is not the dog for every household. It is an exceptional handler and owner that can manage that dog properly. So if you feel that you have bitten off too much as an owner, you're not going to make this dog a happy environment and look after all its needs. Okay. Then we suggest that you please surrender the dog, because it's the best for the dog and the community. We do not condone any of these attacks that happen towards people. That is not the way it should happen.
Very well. So when we come back from this break, Sizwe, I want you to talk about why you think the kind of legislation that Pitbull owners and the Federation is advocating for will not work in South Africa, or why it's too late for that, because that's what you say, it's too late for that. And I also see that, Lehanda, on one hand, you're a Pitbull owner. Will that be right?
That is correct, yes.
And Sizwe, I also read that he survived a Pitbull attack. Will that be right?
No.
Okay, very well. When we come back, we'll talk more about, Lehanda, your experience with your Pitbull. Stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Village Square Africa. Still with me are Lehanda and Sizwe. Both of them are joining us via Zoom from South Africa. And we're talking about pit bulls. And as you may have heard in the news, there have been some pit bull attacks that have led to the death. The latest ones being 2 children. Lehanda is with the Federation, the Pitbull Federation of South Africa, advocating that we need legislation that will focus on how people get their pit bulls, how they handle their pit bulls, and, well, when your pit bull attacks somebody because of the owner's failure, there should be consequences as well. On the other hand, Sizwe tells us that it's time to let them go. A ban outright is the way to go. But Sizwe, let's start the conversation with you this time. You've heard the argument from Lehanda about why do you think that kind of legislation will not work?
Precisely because the breed has been allowed to be in the wrong hands, which is why we are facing this crisis. And in our correspondence to government, we request for the complete ban of the pit bull. But we go further to say, introduce a legislation that would compel everyone who wishes to keep any of the power breeds to undergo a basic training on how to socialize a dog, on how to keep such a breed, and also make people to go through a similar process as if they applying for gun ownership, so that at the end of the day, they can acquire licenses. So we say one and the same thing in as far as that is concerned. However, we differ on keeping the pit bull as a pet. It does not qualify to be a domestic pet. It has killed so many people. All the things that have been advanced about the breed, they've been allowed to occur. It's too late now. It's all over. It's in the wrong people. people who do not understand what this breed is all about, what does it possess, the aggression, the level of aggression that is possessed by this dog is an immediate danger to society. We can't have this dog within our society. We need to look at something else. So that is our call to government. We hear all those that are arguing in favor of the dog, but I can assure you that there are very few South Africans who have who qualify for ownership of this breed. The majority of those who keep this dog don't have any of these requirements that are being mentioned here.
Very well.
And don't even talk about those who are misusing the dog and abusing it by subjecting it to dog fighting, which is illegal. But the unfortunate part is that every parties that are involved in this have been negligent. There's been dereliction of duty because there's a law that was introduced in 1992, an amendment to a 1969 Act, which has not been enforced. That has also contributed to the current crisis that we are facing. But ban the breed, that's the only solution.
I just want us to move us a bit forward as we are winding down, okay? After the latest attacks, we know that some community members also launched an attack on one of the dogs that molds the 3-year-old. Is that the way to go in the absence of this ban? Because I can only imagine it being replicated in other areas and endangering the dogs themselves also. Sizwe, what would you say?
We condemn that. We are against any killing of dogs. The cruel level of cruelty that we have witnessed. There's another video that was circulated where a Pitbull was being stabbed. We condemn that. People must surrender the dogs to animal rescue centers, but dogs should not be killed. But this also calls on authorities to move with the speed. Municipalities need to come up and resuscitate their bylaws on dog ownership so that we can prevent these things. But the discussions and the debates that we are continuing to have and the continued attacks on humans are making people to be agitated. So we need to move with the speed, to come up with a solution that will put a stop to what is happening, to what is making people behave in the way they do. But taking laws into our own hands, it's something that we condemn as the foundation.
Very well, Lehanda, I'll come to you now. As you know, the debate is ongoing as to what the final solution should be. This has the tendency of putting owners in fear, and I believe perhaps people under the Federation may have related such to you, but what will be your advice to owners right now on what they can do, protecting themselves and people out there?
Well, the best advice that we can give to responsible pitbull owners at the moment is to please stay calm. Try and keep your dog safe out of the eye of the normal public, and we need to sit back and let the law take its course. Yes, we have legislation in place. Everybody that has lacked in implementing those legislation over the last decades have now woken up, and I'm sure they're all stepping up to the party. Our law enforcement agencies, our animal protection organizations, they have all now realized that we're sitting with a very big problem. Dr. Kupelo is quite right. The majority of these dogs are in the wrong hands at the moment. That is why we're saying that the breed ban will not work. The wrong people that are owning the dogs for the wrong reasons will move from one breed to the next. You will not stop the killing and the mauling of people. They will just move on to the next breed. And you will push a lot of the owners underground illegally, and they will continue with their criminal activities. If people get the dog for protection and now it's all of a sudden illegal, you're going to push them underground and you will not be able to regulate anything from there on. And that we've seen that all across the world. So we are calling on responsible owners to look after their pets, keep them as safe as possible.
Very well.
And that is all we can do.
So you're a Pitbull mom. And so
Yes, I am.
yes. So talk to us because I see how people rush on the Pitbull when it mauls somebody, but it doesn't let go no matter what they do. So what advice would you give to people when they come into contact with an aggressive Pitbull? Is there anything they can do at all to mitigate what it could be as we wait for how this debate turns out?
There is actually no safe way to intervene in any dog attack, because the possibility of that dog turning on you and continue the mauling with you is very likely. We've seen that with many of the victims. That is what has happened. So it's very unfortunate, but you have to. The best thing to do is to try to keep the dog out of that situation. You must remember that as a pit bull owner and as a power breed owner, the responsibility of any action of your dog stays with you. So you need to make sure that your dog is in your yard, it's behind your perimeter fencing, that it doesn't come out, that it doesn't come loose. When you walk in the street, that it's properly leashed, that you don't go in dog parks to visit, because there's always other dogs running around. A lot of the times it's not your dog that initiates the fight, but another animal. So we urge our dog owners not to put your dog in that situation. And unfortunately, there is no safe way to intervene in any dog attack once it's happened.
I see. Sizwe, you have the last word on the show today. What role can the SPCA be playing right now?
The SPCA is already playing an active role by accepting the surrendered dogs. They were the first organization to support the call, to some aspects of our call. They are for sterilization of dogs, not only the pit bull. So they should be funded as well, so as to make sure that the surrendered dogs are not compromised in as far as their welfare is concerned. But there's also a need for raising awareness on dog ownership, because what has also been exposed here is that a number of people who keep dogs in South Africa do not have the basic knowledge of what they are keeping, on how to look after what they are keeping. But to come back to the Pitbull issue, we are very clear. We are waiting for government to give us a date so that we can deliver the petition. And our message is clear: protect lives, protect the right that is guaranteed in our constitution, ban the Pitbull, and introduce legislation that would ensure that going forward, there is no space for backyard breeding, and there is no space for dog attacks, especially the fatal ones.
Very well. Thank you so much, Sizwe and Lehanda, for your time here on the program today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lehanda Rheeder is with the Pitbull Federation of South Africa, and Sizwe Kupelo is patron and founder of the Sizwe Kupelo Foundation, and we'll be talking about pit bulls and the attacks that have occurred in South Africa. Whatever side of the debate you belong to, it's clear that before you own any dog, or especially the pit bulls, you should have had some kind of training and understanding of the fur babies or pawed babies you're bringing to your home or wherever that is. I'm so grateful you could join us for today's edition of the program. We are back here same time tomorrow to discuss industrialization of the continent. Make a date with us then. Bye-bye.